So, this is a really powerful thing. Looking at the data sets you've already got, just plotting out the patterns, you can actually begin to see where these things plot. Popular music is a fashion business. It turns out a regular turnover of popularity, rapid. Stochastic change in terms of popularity is what you see down there as well, and that's another signature that you're down in this bottom right. Charitable giving is slow and steady. There are some changes down the end of the tail, it's a bit more volatile, but largely it's slow and steady. The number one thing that American citizens who are very generous in their charitable donations, the number one thing that American citizens have given charitable donations to for the last 40 years is what? Religion. Number two is what? Education. Education, education, education. Sadly, number two in Britain, sadly, is pets. Yeah, I ask you. Deodorants plot up here because the product actually matters. It's one of those few occasions the products actually matter. The product format is. And down here, guesswork, car insurance. So look, this allows us to do a number of things. We can plot markets, we can plot regions, we can plot countries. If you're sitting in a central job, trying to set strategy, trying to lead people through something, you can take in the data you've already got, you can plot this out, plot each of the regions out, and see where they sit. This is based on some work we did for a large Japanese electronics manufacturer they're working with a lot at the moment. And it just gives you an example of how a particular category happens to work. The interesting thing down here is whilst everything's clustered around together, most of the market's clustered together, there are two outliers. One of which is Spain down here, if you don't recognise that flag. And Spain has had terrible economic issues down there, but it was a watch out. Let's go and discover a bit more about that. We think it's to do with the retail environment there as well as the consumer environment, which is powerful. And then Japan. Japan is different. Whatever they say, it is different. But it's also useful for the Japanese management to see that everywhere else is different from Japan. So just plotting things in this really simple way without being too precise, it allows us to. But we can be precise because we can actually plot specific coordinates on this, and we can actually see how things change. And boy, do they change. This says that for this electronics category, that Spain is really in trouble, because we're now talking about guesswork. This is not a place for a brand to make a living in the longer term, in this bottom left. It's really hard. There's a lot of promotional activity needed, a lot of giving your money away rather than building margin. So it's a really useful watch out. So, it also not just tells us where we are, but it helps us practically to set kind of strategies. And I'm indebted to my friends at Anomaly, both here in New York and particularly in London, who've helped us develop some sort of routing template, common strategies that come out of this. The first of which is, so what kind of messaging is going to be important wherever you are? And imagine this is the camera business. We're all in the camera business. The first example here, if you find yourself in a considered space, then you do want to tell people about this fantastic product and its difference and superiority. You want them to experience it. Because without that, they're not going to be able to satisfy their preferred decision-making style. So shutter speed might be an example. In expert communities, there are a lot of this kind of things in high-end consumer electronics, but perhaps less than you might think. What do professionals do? What do the experts do? Interesting, even expert markets refer to experts. So there's communities. This leads you to have that kind of messaging very different. And then in more popular markets, and you can see where e-commerce is really taking off here, helping people see each other. On every page of Amazon, every product page, there are 16 or more what she's having features that take your data and flip it to other people, take their data and flip it to you. So what everyone chooses, the popularity, the cultural salience is very important. And then over here, finally, bottom left is basically, it's only this many dollars. Finally, before we go, the kind of comms mix that you might want to use or route to market. Top left is all about the product. How can people consider it? Top right, where we're talking about experts, you need to nurture those people. This is where the influentials that we leapt on the bandwagon of the recent years actually do take precedent. We need to think about that. But it's not as common as, we keep going to that as a default assumption rather than actually checking the data. Bottom right is very different. Again, the patterns in the data will tell you the difference between whether you are bottom right or top right and what the movement is over time. And then an impulse mix is what we, the kind of stuff that we see with very retail-focused activity. So, I think one of the ways to understand complexity is not to dig deep, but to spot the patterns. And it's worthwhile reminding ourselves these patterns exist. These guys in social science have been doing this stuff for quite a long time with data sets that we, the like of which we don't actually have. And I want to leave you with something uplifting. And this is a short story from Borges, a great Argentinian writer. He talks about a civilization who make maps, and making maps is their main cultural activity. And over time, they get better and better at making maps, and make more and more detailed. Beginning to sound like the market research industry. More and more detailed, more and more precise. In the end, the maps became one-to-one in scale. The map of a city was the same size as the city. The map of a province, the same as the province. And those maps are unusable. I guess that's one of the things that pattern spotting gives us in trying to understand complexity and these kind of simple issues about independence or social, is that patterns make it easy for people to do stuff, for our colleagues and ourselves to make decisions. More and more fine detail, the obsession with, can mislead us and actually stop us from doing the things we need to do. Thank you very much.